working to connect a region of over 600 million bridges between our lands.
Hello, Malma Angeles. Welcome to ASEAN in Focus. We're coming to you live from Manila and Thailand. Hello, Esther.
Hi, I'm Esther Odanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, bringing you the news in the dynamic ASEAN region.
On today's headlines. At least 50 people were killed and dozens injured when a Philippine military aircraft carrying troops crashed and burst into flames after missing the runway in the country's south.
Philippine scientists warned Sunday a volcano south of Manila could erupt again anytime soon as toxic gas emissions hit a record high and thousands more people in vulnerable communities left their homes.
And thousands of troops and police hit the streets of Indonesia's Java Island and Bali to enforce new virus curbs as the Southeast Asian nation battles an unprecedented wave of COVID infections.
Hey, Singapore rolls out its new safety COVID-19 video.
Please give us your attention for the safety briefing.
First, here in the Philippines, at least 50 people were killed and dozens injured when a Philippine military aircraft carrying troops crashed and burst into flames after missing the runway in the country's south, according to officials. Nearly 100 people, most of them recent Army graduates, were on the C-130 Hercules transport plane, which was trying to land on Jolo Island in Sulu province around midday. Some of the soldiers were seen jumping out of the plane before it hit the ground and exploded into flames, according to Major General William Gonzalez, commander of the Joint Task Force Sulu. It was one of the country's deadliest military aviation accidents. Western Mindanao Command Chief Lieutenant General Corletan Benluan told AFP the aircraft overshot the landing strip and then broke into two, according to initial reports. Air Force spokesman Lieutenant Colonel Maynard Mariano meanwhile said the cause of the crash would be investigated, while Armed Forces spokesman Major General Edgardo Arevalo told a radio station that it was being treated as an accident rather than an attack. Now, most of the passengers had recently graduated from basic military training and were being deployed to the Restive Island as part of a joint task force fighting terrorists in the Muslim-majority region. They were supposed to report for duty on Sunday, according to Gonzalez. The military has a heavy presence in the southern Philippines, where militant groups, including the Kidnap for Ransom outfit Abu Sayyaf, operate. Sunday's accident comes after a Black Hawk helicopter crashed last month during a nighttime training flight, killing all 6 on board. The accident prompted the grounding of the Philippines' entire Black Hawk fleet.
In a related news, Defense Secretary Delfin Lorenzana has ordered a full-blown investigation into the C-130 crash in Sulu that left at least 50 dead. Lorenzana said the probe would begin as soon as rescue and recovery operations were completed. Lorenzana also called on the public to refrain from spreading highly speculative statements about the unfortunate incident. So far, Armed Forces spokesperson Major General Edgar Arevalo said in a radio interview that the death toll has climbed to 50, including 3 civilians. The plane was on its way to Jolo Airport from Lumbia, Cagayan de Oro, when the crash took place on Sunday at 11:30 a.m. Some of the soldiers were seen jumping out of the plane before it hit the ground and exploded into flames, said Major General William Gonzalez, commander of the Joint Task Force Sulu. Most of the passengers had recently graduated from basic military training and were being deployed to the Restive Island as part of a joint task force fighting terrorism. According to a CNN report, The military personnel were supposed to bolster the battalions fighting against Abu Sayyaf, a Filipino jihadi group based in Sulu that has been involved in bomb attacks and piracy for decades. The group proclaimed allegiance to ISIS in 2014.
In other news, Philippine scientists warned on Sunday a volcano south of Manila could erupt again anytime soon as toxic gas emissions hit a record high and thousands more people in vulnerable communities left their homes. Taal volcano, which sits in a picturesque lake, has been discharging sulfur dioxide for the past week, creating a haze over Manila and several surrounding provinces and prompting health warnings. Nearly 4,500 people have left their homes since authorities called for evacuations of high-risk areas on the lake shore. The Provincial Disaster Agency said on Sunday some settlements have been locked down temporarily, preventing residents from returning to their properties. An eruption similar to the July 1st event may occur anytime soon, that according to the Philippine Institute of Volcanology and Seismology in a statement. Taal, which lies 50 kilometers south of Manila, burst to life last Thursday, sending steam and rock fragments hundreds of meters into the sky. Several small eruptions followed. It prompted the Seismological Agency to raise the alert level from 2 to 3. And the last eruption there in January 2020 shot ash 15 kilometers high and spewed red-hot lava, crushing scores of homes, killing livestock, and sending over 135,000 people into shelters. Taal is one of the most active volcanoes in a nation hit periodically by eruptions and earthquakes due to its location on the Pacific Ring of Fire, a zone of intense seismic activity.
Now let's go over to Indonesia, where the country will not allow any foreign visitors who are not fully vaccinated. The details from December Paras from our EBC Jakarta, Indonesia Bureau. Hi, December.
Hi, Esther. Yes, you are right. Indonesian government said in a statement on Sunday, the country will require all foreign nationals traveling to the country to be fully vaccinated, tested negative for COVID-19, and agree to enter an 8-day quarantine. Jody Mahardi, a spokesperson for the Coordinating Minister for Maritime Affairs and Investment, Luhut Binsar Panjaitan, said in the statement that starting July 6, 2021, all foreigners who travel to Indonesia must show a vaccine card proving them are fully vaccinated and they have their negative PCR result for COVID-19 before entering Indonesia. He said only visiting diplomats and ministerial level foreign officials were exempted from the requirement. Indonesians returning from abroad do not need to show proof of vaccination, but they need to prove that they have been tested negative for the virus. Jody also stated the 8 days quarantine will be imposed to both foreigners and Indonesian citizens. They will also be tested with PCR upon arrival and on the 7th day of the quarantine. They would only be allowed to leave the quarantine facility should they tested negative for the virus on the last test. Indonesian citizens who has yet to be vaccinated would also get their first shot before leaving. The Coordinating Ministry for Maritime Affairs and Investment, which President Joko Widodo tasked to handle the latest COVID-19 spike, considered that a longer quarantine time from previously 5 days would be enough to contain the variant of concerns. The combination of quarantine and entry-exit testing, days 1 and 7, can prevent post-quarantine transmission with a probability of transmission less than 0.25%, the ministry wrote. Indonesia reported more than 27,000 new COVID-19 cases and 555 deaths, a new record high on Sunday, capping the country's worst week in the pandemic. The country added close to 169,000 new cases last week, up to 35% of the previous peak just a week earlier. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you, December, for your updates. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You too, Esther. Stay safe in Phuket. Reporting from Jakarta, Indonesia, this is December Paras. We live in interesting times.
To Thailand now, where the government is coming under criticism over the slow rollout of its COVID-19 vaccines. To tell us more, here's Gladys Piñuela Bangkaye from our EBC Thailand Bureau. Hello, Gladys.
Hello, Alma. The slow rollout of AstraZeneca vaccines in Thailand, leading to vaccination schedules being postponed, caused the government to be lambasted. The government has come under heavy criticism over vaccine distribution after 6 million AstraZeneca vaccine doses due for delivery in June were delayed. Blanket vaccinations nationwide were expected to start in June. The government admitted that it was slow to place orders for vaccines, causing a shortage of 50% from its original plan to roll out 10 million AstraZeneca vaccine doses this month. Public bookings under various vaccination programs were delayed as a result. According to Rucha Lakanadison, an MP and spokesman of the Move Forward Party, cited information from the Ministry of Higher Education, Science, Research and Innovation that some 6.3 million AstraZeneca vaccine doses were due for delivery in June. However, only about 5.37 million doses were delivered. He added that only 5 to 6 million doses will be delivered to Thailand a month out of 15 to 17 million doses produced monthly. According to Chanina Rongsakiat, deputy spokesman of the Puthai Party, the government in early stages chose AstraZeneca as the only main vaccine, so there were not enough quality vaccines for the people. Chanin said the government has now plans of buying 28 million doses, more doses of Sinovac, to make up for the missing AstraZeneca doses. He added that the government has been slowly in procuring Moderna vaccines, despite studies show that the vaccine is effective against the highly transmissible variants of COVID-19. He added that people would pay for it since Moderna is an alternative vaccine. Back to you, Alma.
All right. Thank you very much, Gladys, for your update. Looking forward to more developments on the vaccine rollout, vaccination, tourism, everything. Thank you very much, Esther. Thank you for your time.
Reporting here from Thailand, this is Gladys Piñuela. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, the foreign minister of Malaysia thanked the United States for its Pfizer COVID-19 vaccine donation to the country. Here's Alfred Balmes from our Malaysia Bureau. Hi, Alfred.
Hi, Esther. Good afternoon, and to all viewers. 1 million doses of the Pfizer-BioNTech COVID-19 vaccine is scheduled to arrive in Malaysia today. In a statement Sunday, July 4, Foreign Minister Datuk Seri Hishamuddin Hussein, on behalf of Malaysia, expressed his sincere gratitude to his counterpart, Antony Blinken, U.S. Secretary of State, and the U.S. government for the generous donation of its COVID-19 vaccine. The doses are from an initial batch of 80 million U.S.-made vaccines. The Biden administration pledged last month to share globally amidst concern about the disparity in vaccination rates between advanced and developing nations. Malaysia is expected to receive a total of 12 million doses of various COVID-19 vaccine this month. Hishamuddin said these vaccines will greatly intensify Malaysia's vaccination process and make meaningful progress to the ongoing rollout of Malaysia's national COVID-19 immunization program. The United States, through its embassy in Kuala Lumpur, are also been extending various assistance and contribution to Malaysia since the start of the pandemic last year, including the in-kind contribution of medical supplies, personal protective equipment, and ICT equipment worth $250,000 US, equivalent to 1.04 million Malaysian ringgit. Hishamuddin was highly appreciative of the invaluable support extended thus far by the U.S. and hoped that the close and friendly ties will be further strengthened for the mutual benefits of two countries. In his letter earlier to Secretary Blinken, Hishamuddin also related that Malaysia welcomed President Joe Biden's June 3rd announcement of the United States expression of support for temporary waiver of intellectual property protection of COVID-19 vaccines. He also said Prime Minister Tan Sri Muhyiddin Yassin had also announced in his address to NICI International Conference in May of Malaysia's support for the IP protection waiver for the COVID-19 vaccine. In the common pursuit of equitable global access to COVID-19 vaccine, Foreign Minister added Malaysia is stand ready to establish all-around cooperation with the United States in vaccine research, development, and distribution. Back to you, Esther.
Thank you, Alfred, for your time. Stay safe and stay healthy.
You too. Reporting live from Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia, this is Alfred Balmes. We live in interesting times.
Meanwhile, thousands of troops and police hit the streets of Indonesia's Java Island and Bali Saturday to enforce new virus curbs as the Southeast Asian nation battles an unprecedented wave of COVID-19 infections. Take a look. The country's overwhelmed healthcare system teetered on the brink of collapse as jammed hospitals turned away patients, forcing desperate families to hunt for oxygen tanks to treat the sick and dying at home. Hundreds of checkpoints were set up as mosques, parks, shopping malls and restaurants were shuttered across the capital Jakarta and hard-hit Java. Over 50,000 police and troops were deployed to enforce restrictions in areas home to more than 100 million people. The rules also applied to Bali, where police patrolled shuttered beachside eateries after the holiday island shelled plans to reopen to foreign tourists. The world's fourth most populous nation has seen its daily caseload more than quadruple in less than a month, with a new record Saturday of 27,913 cases logged in the past 24 hours and 493 official deaths, less than Friday's record 539 fatalities. The health ministry said the highly infectious Delta variant of the virus, first identified in India and now present in at least 85 countries, was driving the recent surge. Experts had earlier warned that millions traveling at the end of the Muslim fasting month of Ramadan could spark an explosion in cases.
In other news, Batanes and Babuyan Islands will experience moderate to heavy wind, at times intense rains, as tropical depression Emong continues to move closer to extreme northern Luzon. In its 8 a.m. bulletin Monday, the Philippine Atmospheric, Geophysical and Astronomical Services Administration, or PAGASA, said Emong was last tracked 385 kilometers east-northeast of Tuguegarao City, Cagayan, or 385 kilometers east of Apari, Cagayan. It is moving west-northwest at 40 kilometers per hour. It has maintained its strength, packing maximum sustained winds of 35 kilometers per hour near the center and gustiness of up to 70 kilometers per hour. Take a look.
Para po sa ating tropical cyclone wind signal number 1, nakataas pa rin yan dito po sa Batanes area, sa northern portion ng Cagayan, particular po yan sa bayan ng Santa Ana, Gonzaga, kasama po ang Babuyan Island. Sa nasabing mga lugar, posible na ring maranasan po ang mga pagbugso ng hangin at may mga pag-ulan sa susunod po na 36 na oras. At para po naman sa track ng ating bagyong si Emong, bukas po ng umaga, inaasahan pong ito'y nasa layong, nandito na po yan sa coastal waters po ng Itbay at Batanes. At by Wednesday nga ay inaasahan natin na posible na po itong lumabas ng ating Philippine Area of Responsibility.
Strong breeze to near gale conditions are also likely in areas under TCWS number 1 rough to very rough seas will be experienced over the seaboards where TCW has been hoisted. Emong is expected to make a landfall in the vicinity of Batanes, Babuyan Islands either in the afternoon or at night. It is forecast to intensify into a tropical storm in the next 12 hours and is forecast to exit the Philippine Area of Responsibility on Tuesday. The trough of Emong may bring scattered rain showers and thunderstorms in Ilocos Region, Cordillera Administrative Region, the rest of Cagayan Valley, Bicol region, and eastern Visayas.
And the news continues here on Eagle News. We'll be right back.
Innovation, digital disruption, globalization. Startups, micro, small, and medium enterprises, as well as large corporations, all face interesting challenges in the market today. Peek into the world of exciting opportunities and partnerships to drive growth with the latest business news and information. We are open for business. Your weekly dose of entrepreneurial inspiration to update you on the latest developments in the world of business. Get up close and personal with CEOs and thought leaders to help you discover valuable insights. Sharpen your instincts for smart decision making with the latest markets and economic trends, disruptive ideas, global innovation, social entrepreneurship, and other leading-edge business ideas. Join the conversations to create a more vibrant environment for entrepreneurship. Catch Open for Business, from vision to action.
The Department of Social Welfare and Development is willing to face any investigating body and present the necessary evidence, as well as other relevant documents to belie the allegations of Senator Manny Pacquiao that there are missing funds from the Social Amelioration Program, or SAP. Senator Pacquiao, who was challenged by President Duterte to identify alleged corruption hit government agencies, named DSWD as among those with irregularities in a media briefing on Saturday, hours before he left for his Los Angeles, California training. Take a look.
Mr. President, alam niyo po ba na sa kabuuhang halaga na ito ay may inilaan na 50 billion pesos or more or less ang Department of Social Welfare and Development para lamang sa isang hindi po kilalang e-wallet na kung tawagin ay StarPay, may paid-up capital lamang po na 62,000 pesos. Batay sa ating investigasyon, Mr. President, lumalabas na sa initial po sa disbursement mula sa StarPay account para sa 1.8 million beneficiaries, nakatumbas ay mahigit na 14 billion pesos. Kung tutuusin, maganda po ang layunin ng paggamit ng e-wallet para sa distribution ng SAP. Maiwasan kasi ang naging kalakaran na ang pera ay nauuwi sa bulsa ng mga kawatan ng opisyalis sa gobyerno. Mas madali rin masundan ang money trail dito. Ito ngayon ang problema, Mr. President. Bakit sa 1.8 million na binigyan ng SAP mula sa StarPay ay 500,000 lamang po na katao ang na-download nito? Sa mga hindi po nakakaalam, hindi ka po pwedeng mag-receive o mag-withdraw ng anumang halaga kung wala kang nada-download na StarPay app. Ang tanong ko po, anong nangyari sa 1.3 million katao na hindi naka-download ng StarPay app? Ngunit sa record po, nakatanggap na po sila ng ayuda.
The first tranche of SAP was handled by the Department of the Interior and local government, while the next one was managed by the DSWD through FSPS. The FSPs are Robinsons Bank, Union Bank, RCBC, GCash, PayMaya, and StarPay, identified through the technical assistance of the BSP, which has the expertise on digitization as well as enabling policies and regulatory environment for financial inclusion and digital payments. BSP gave primary considerations to the presence of payout partners to ensure ease and ability to cash out by beneficiaries, balanced with other factors such as the presence of business model institutions, historical experience in commercial rollout, and the type of cash out points that may contribute to ensuring liquidity or availability of cash. In April this year, the DSWD terminated the services of the FSPs to conduct manual payouts for the unserved second tranche beneficiaries. The DSWD said, quote, the FSPs, including StarPay, liquidated the budget that they received and refunded the amount for the unserved beneficiaries to the DSWD. At present, over 17 million low-income families were recorded to have received their first tranche of SAP, with more than 98 billion pesos amount disbursed.
Meanwhile, a leading Malaysian news site was ordered on Friday to pay over $130,000 after losing a defamation case against a mining company, adding to concerns about worsening freedom of expression. Malaysia Kini was sued by rollout, Australian gold mining, which claimed articles and videos published in 2012 about pollution allegedly linked to the firm's operation were defamatory. The now defunct company's suit was initially dismissed in 2016, but an appeal court found in favor of the firm 2 years later. On Friday, the country's top court upheld the appeal court's ruling and ordered the popular independent portal to pay 550,000 ringgit, or approximately $132,000, in damages and costs. In a 3-2 majority ruling, the court said Malaysia Kini had failed to report the story in a fair, disinterested, and neutral way. The site had failed to take steps to verify the content of the articles, the court said, adding, quote, "This is irresponsible rather than responsible journalism," unquote. But Malaysia Kini editor-in-chief Stephen Gunn criticized the ruling as a blow for public interest journalism and said the site's journalists had been carrying out their duties by reporting residents' concerns. The decision came after Malaysia Kini, which has made a name for itself reporting on the misdeeds of the ruling elite, was fined in February after being convicted of contempt of court. That case related to readers' comments posted under an article on the site critical of the judiciary and sparked alarm about worsening press freedoms. Malaysia Kini has faced continual attacks since its founding in 1999, from police raids to criminal prosecutions, but remains hugely popular in a country where much of the traditional media is government-linked.
The world is in a very dangerous period of the COVID-19 pandemic, compounded by more transmissible variants like Delta, which is continuing to evolve and mutate. That, according to the World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus, and he warned this. Let's listen in.
Patterns. Listening as we're in a very dangerous period of this pandemic. In those countries with low vaccination coverage, terrible scenes of hospitals overflowing are again becoming the norm. But no country on earth is out of the woods yet. The Delta variant is dangerous and is continuing to evolve and mutate, which requires constant evaluation and careful adjustment of the public health response. Delta has been detected in at least 98 countries and is spreading quickly in countries with low and high vaccination coverage. This week, WHO hosted a 2-day summit with heads of state, heads of government, ministers, and civil society leaders from small island developing states, SEEDs, which focused on building resilient health systems in the face of multiple threats. Climate crisis, the severe impact of the pandemic on lives and livelihoods, vaccine inequity, and the large burden of non-communicable diseases were discussed, and concrete outcomes developed on how together we can tackle them. On an almost day-to-day basis, we are now seeing the impact of the climate crisis. Record-breaking, scorching heat waves, catastrophic storms, and changing weather patterns are impacting food systems, disease dispersion, and societies at large. The time for lofty words is over. There needs to be concerted action backed by financial resources to mitigate the consequences of climate change while we work to keep temperatures down and scale green innovations.
And we know too that one of the consequences of climate change is the fact that more pathogens will be released, and the likelihood of having future pandemics within a shorter period of time, maybe every several years, every decade, is likely. And that is one of the reasons to why we have to prioritize the issue of climate change in order to protect the planet, and at the same time, even to control or to reduce or eliminate, for that matter, the pandemics that may follow in the future.
The WHO chief further said that he had already urged leaders across the world to ensure that by this time next year, 70% of all people in every country are vaccinated. That would, he said, effectively end the acute phase of the pandemic. The WHO chief noted that 3 billion doses of vaccine had already been distributed. Of the vaccine doses given globally, fewer than 2% have been in poorer countries. And although rich countries, including Britain, the United States, France, and Canada, have pledged to donate 1 billion vaccines, WHO estimates 11 billion doses are needed to immunize the world.
Going back to the Philippines, the country's coronavirus disease or COVID-19 situation remains fragile despite a low-risk classification, the Department of Health or DOH said on Saturday. The low-risk classification is based on parameters that the country can manage its cases, but it doesn't mean that the public should be complacent in following health protocols. Let's take a look.
The national picture, yes, will show us that nasa low risk tayo based on the 2-week growth rate and the average daily attack rate. Pero pag tinignan ho natin ang bawat reyon sa ating bansa, makikita ho natin na may mga reyon talaga ngayon na may mga pagtaas ng kaso. So this low risk classification should not really be advertised, or hindi dapat ma-encourage ang ating mga kababayan para maging complacent tayo. Ibig sabihin lang po na ma-manage natin ang ating mga kaso, ngunit meron mga angking pagtaas sa ibang lugar, kaya kailangan po patuloy pa rin po ang ating pag-iingat.
Given a day before, kasi po kapag nagbigay po ng dose ang national government, agad rin po itong ibinibigay. So kung wari po, katulad nung nakaraan, kahapon po o nung...
Even in the National Capital Region or NCR, Vergara said the decline in infections is slightly slowing down, but cases outside can affect the region because its borders are very porous. Currently, under closely monitoring are cases in Visayas and Regions 11, 12, Caraga, and Bangsamoro in Mindanao. The DOH is also observing the situation in some parts of Luzon, particularly in Lucena City, in Calabarzon, Ilocos Region, Cagayan Valley, and Cordillera Administrative Region, where there is a high healthcare utilization rate.
Meanwhile, the Vietnam Immigration Department under the Ministry of Public Security has issued a notice for automatic stay extension for foreigners stranded in Vietnam due to COVID-19. Now, foreigners who entered Vietnam on visa waivers, e-visas, or tourist visas from March 1st, 2020 are entitled to automatic stay extension until July 31 and can depart from Vietnam without having to apply for stay extension. And for those who entered Vietnam before March 1st, the same automatic stay extension until July 31st can be considered, subject to provision of proof that the person was stranded in Vietnam due to COVID-19, accompanied by a diplomatic note with Vietnamese translation from relevant diplomatic missions or a written document from relevant Vietnamese authorities confirming that the person was required to undergo mandatory quarantine or treatment for COVID-19 or the advice of other force majeure. The person is required to present a diplomatic note or written document on departure from Vietnam. Now, number 2, during automatic stay extension period, foreigners are required to complete temporary residence and health status declaration. Number 3, foreigners who are not subject to paragraph 1 or violate Vietnamese laws will be treated according to applicable laws of Vietnam.
Now let's go over to Cambodia, where the Preah Vihear provincial authorities placed 3 villages under lockdown for 2 weeks to July 17 after COVID cases were detected in the province's northwestern district of Choam Kasan. These are Tamachet, Samdek, Tekno, Hun Sen, and Chambak Senche villages in Saraem Commune and Saraem Kang Tubong village in Kantu Commune, according to a letter issued by Provincial Governor Prak Savan on July 3. All travel is banned except for essential purposes, the letter said, offering as an example seeking COVID-19 testing at the Provincial Department of Health in Preah Vihear town. Other exemptions are granted for medical and firefighting services, the armed forces, among others. But other kinds of travel are not off the table, the letter noted. However, permits from local authorities on lockdown duties will be required, it said. Everyone in the lockdown area must follow the COVID-19 prevention measures, and all social gatherings are forbidden, the letter emphasized. While the number of coronavirus infections recorded in 3 villages that prompted the lockdown has not been made public, the province has logged 127 cases and 0 fatalities as of July 3. There are currently 83 active cases and 44 recoveries.
In other news, to Myanmar now, where 25 anti-junta fighters and civilians were killed during clashes with the military in central Myanmar, villagers said Sunday, as locals increasingly take up arms against the regime in the coup-wrecked country. Now, Myanmar has been in turmoil since a February 1 coup that ousted Aung San Suu Kyi's government, with 890 people killed in a junta crackdown on dissent, according to a local monitoring group. In some areas, civilians have formed defense forces to combat the State Administration Council, as the junta dubs itself, often using hunting rifles or makeshift weapons cobbled together from household items. The central Sagaing region has been the site of multiple skirmishes between defense forces and the military, and on Friday, fighting broke out in Depayin Township. Residents told AFP that military trucks entered their area and then opened fire on a village near the jungle, hoping to flush out numbers of the local defense force. We heard the shooting of artillery 26 times, said a villager, who added that anti-junta fighters tried to retaliate but could not fend off the attack. They shot everyone who they saw on the road, and in the village, they did not just have one target. He said civilians were among the dead, he added. Villagers waited until Saturday to venture out of their homes to assess the casualties, according to a member of the local defense force who helped to organize the collection of bodies. On Sunday, they found 8 more bodies. BBC News Burmese, the BBC's Myanmar language service, reported a similar death toll.
Alma and I will be back after a short break.
Ang trabaho naman talaga ng maritime group ng PNP is to enforce the maritime laws.
Tayo lang yung stricto, pero in other parts of the country, pwede na naman ang tourism.
Definitely, we are ready to respond to a possible spike.
Sapagkat ang aming intensyon ay makatulong lang sa mga tao na wala talagang magamit na gamot.
92 voted for this resolution, which will make it stronger, calling on the Justice Department to come up with more stringent ways to be able to avert these hate crimes against Asian Americans.
Mas marami po tayong magagamit ngayon na mga tools or mga equipment.
Maraming salamat, Weng, at sa buong puwersa ng Balitalakayan sa pagkakataong ito.
Tatalakayin ang mga pangunahing balita live sa teleradyo ng Net25 at Radyo Aguila DCEC 1062. Kasama si Weng de la Fuente sa Balitalakayan.
We live in interesting times.
Welcome back. Demonstrating the effectiveness of policies, not just enactment of laws that fight money laundering and terrorist financing, is needed for the Philippines to be removed from the gray list of the Financing Action Task Force. Now, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Governor Benjamin Diokno, in a virtual briefing on Thursday, said that the country was able to address the technical deficiencies cited under the third mutual evaluation by international money laundering authorities after the passage of the Anti-Terrorism Act of 2020, or the Republic Act 11479 and RA 11521, which further amends the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2001. Take a look.
Enters of the NA. As such, the inclusion of the Philippines in the list of jurisdictions under increased monitoring, or the gray list, did not automatically mean the imposition of countermeasures, including the application of enhanced due diligence measures on the subjects of the Philippines. However, should the Philippines fail to meet the deadlines in accomplishing the 18 action items, the FATF may consider calling on countries to impose countermeasures against the Philippines. Let me make this very clear. Accomplishing these 18 action items should be the concern of the entire country. A whole-of-government approach is imperative, as evident in the Philippines' National Anti-Money Laundering and Countering the Financing of Terrorism, AML-CFT strategy for 2018 to 2022, or what we call NACS. Created through Executive Order Number 68, the National AML-CFT Coordinating Committee, or NACC, champions the implementation of the NACS. The NACC subcommittees, which are composed of various agencies, government law enforcement agencies, are the primary implementers of the NA, or the NACS action plans, which are currently being updated to integrate the 18 action plan items. Let me assure you that the NACC is on top of the situation. Even prior to the FATF statement on the Philippines, the NACC met and all agencies involved have committed to accomplishing the 18 action items within the timelines given.
The recent inclusion of the Philippines in the gray list is not the first time for the country after 2000 or prior to the enactment of the Anti-Money Laundering Act of 2001, or AMLA. The country was removed from the list only in 2003 after the Asia-Pacific Group on Money Laundering, or APG review group, confirmed that the country was effectively implementing AML measures, and after the enactment of RA 9194, which amended the AMLA. However, it was again placed on the gray list in 2010 and was even downgraded to dark gray list in 2012 for failure to meet the deadline for address counter-terrorism financing laws. The country was transferred back to the gray list only after the passage of the RA 10167 and the Terrorism Financing Prevention and Suppression Act of 2012.
Asian markets mostly rose Monday following another Wall Street record sparked by a blockbuster U.S. jobs report that reaffirmed the country's recovery was on track, while oil prices dipped as top producers struggled to reach a deal on lifting output. All three main indexes in New York finished the week at a fresh peak in reaction to data showing far more people than expected were employed last month. As the world's top economy continues to race out of last year's pandemic-induced recession. The healthy advances on the Wall Street provided Asian traders with a platform, and most markets extended the rally. Sydney, Seoul, Taipei, Singapore, Wellington, Manila, and Jakarta all rose.
Meanwhile, businesses were less optimistic while consumer confidence improved in the second quarter of the year. The Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas Business Expectation Survey and Consumer Expectation Survey showed on Friday. Senior Director of the BSP Department of Economic Statistics, Redentor Paulo Alegre Jr., said that the overall confidence index of businesses in April to June plummeted to 1.4% from 17.4% in January to March. If we compare the Philippine sentiment with other countries, we are similar to businesses in the United States, Bulgaria, Chile, and China. Their businesses there were less optimistic, according to Alegre in a virtual press briefing. Business sentiment fell in the second quarter of the year due to the upsurge in coronavirus disease or COVID-19 infections, reimposition of stricter community quarantine in the National Capital Region, plus, which is Metro Manila, Bulacan, Cavite, Laguna, and Rizal, and elevated inflation due to supply constraints, he added. He also said this trend would continue in the next quarter and the next 12 months.
In other news, 11 Cambodian villagers died after drinking rice wine suspected to be toxic during a funeral, a police officer said yesterday, adding to the kingdom's growing recent death toll from unsafe homemade alcohol. In the past 2 months, more than 30 people have died in 3 separate incidents across Cambodia from home-brewed rice wine containing methanol, a highly toxic liquid that can cause blindness if ingested. Since Friday, 11 people who attended a funeral in coastal Kampot province, about 155 kilometers from the capital Phnom Penh, died, while 10 more were hospitalized after imbibing homemade wine. The victims suffered dizziness after drinking the liquor, a police officer told AFP, adding that samples were collected for investigation. Homemade rice wine is popular in rural Cambodia at wedding parties, village festivals, and funerals as a cheap alternative to commercially produced drinks. But there is a little regulation of the informal brewers, and headlines regularly pop up of mass deaths from a single celebration or village event.
ASEAN connectivity is a linchpin in ASEAN's pursuit to achieve sustainable development and support post-COVID pandemic recovery efforts. Now, through the Master Plan on ASEAN Connectivity, or MPAC 2025, ASEAN aims to address the pandemic's impact, strengthen resilience, and create greater opportunities for the region. Take a look.
A 2-year break from boxing has left Philippine legend Manny Pacquiao hungry to get back in the ring for what could be the last fight of his career and warm up for Presidential Rumble. Take a look.
I felt so hungry and again and excited to the fight. The feeling is like it's like my feeling when I was young, like early 20s.
Singapore has made headlines across the world in recent weeks after announcing a dramatic shift in how it will approach the spread and control of COVID-19. And one of those is by releasing this catchy campaign video underlining the new approach, which is test, trace, vaccinate. Take a look.
Hey Singapore, a warm welcome aboard. There's no better place than our little red dot. Please give us your attention for the safety briefing because we're going on a journey to a whole new beginning.
We have 3 new strategies to get us safely there.
Hurry up, faster, share!
We're powering up our testing to detect cases early.
We're actively testing so you don't have to worry.
We've got different tests now for a different need.
Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate. Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate.
You can even test at home now if you follow my lead. Grab a self-test kit and remove it from the box. Slip the swab in your nose, just a few seconds tops.
Before you take off, remember your tokens.
Stow it safely in your pocket, you'll be using it often. Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate. Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate. Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate.
Ensure your mobile phone is always switched on, or check in with this app before I'm done with this rap. We'll speed up vaccinations for the young and the old.
When it's your turn to jab, be brave, just go!
In the likely event of our country's reopening, vaccinate, stay safe, it'll keep Singapore going.
Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate. Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate. Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate. Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate.
In the new normal, COVID-19 will not dominate our lives. To keep our people safe while reopening progressively, we have to test, we have to trace, we have to vaccinate.
To everyone in Singapore, thank you for playing your part. Let's move safely into the new normal, because no virus will keep us apart.
Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate. Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate. Let's test, let's trace, let's vaccinate.
Thank you, Esther, for keeping me company today. Have a safe week ahead of you.
Thanks, Alma. Always my pleasure. And that is the latest news in the Southeast Asian nation. Thank you for joining us today here in ASEAN in Focus. I'm Esther Odanga from EBC Thailand Bureau, and we live in interesting times.
And we'll see you back tomorrow. I'm Alma Angeles. We live in interesting times.
Bakit po iba-iba